The human respiratory system, like that of all mammals, consists of a trachea, 2 bronchi, and 2 lungs. Air entering the body passes into the trachea through an opening in the pharynx called the glottis. The glottis is protected by the epiglottis, a flap that closes when you swallow to prevent food from entering your trachea, your windpipe, and choking you. From the trachea, air passes into one of the 2 bronchi in the thoracic region, each leading to one of the lungs. The trachea and bronchi are both reinforced by bands of cartilage that prevent them from collapsing. Within the lungs, each bronchus branches repeatedly into smaller and smaller bronchioles, each ending in a cluster of alveoli, the respiratory surface of the lungs. There are about 300 million alveoli in a human lung. The lungs are porous and spongy in texture and contain large numbers of elastic fibers. Each lung is covered by a thin membrane of smooth epithelium. A second membrane lines the chest wall. The space between the 2 pleural membranes is the pleural cavity, filled with fluid to keep the membranes moist. The pressure inside the pleural cavity is lower than atmospheric pressure. This ensures that the air in the alveoli, which is at atmospheric pressure, keeps the lungs expanded against the wall of the thorax. If air enters the pleural cavity, the pressure becomes equalized and the lungs would collapse. Below the lungs, the diaphragm separates the thoracic and abdominal cavities. The expansion and contraction of this muscular sheet affect the volume of the chest cavity and play an important role in breathing, as we'll see next. Breathing is the mechanical process by which air enters and leaves the lungs. In humans, breathing involves the movements of the rib and abdominal muscles as well as the diaphragm. During inhalation, the rib muscles and diaphragm contract, while the abdominal muscles relax, lifting up and expanding the rib cage and lowering the diaphragm. The pressure in the lungs decreases, and air rushes in to equalize the pressure. During exhalation, the rib muscles and diaphragm relax, while the abdominal muscles contract. The elastic tissue in the lungs also returns to its relaxed state. The diaphragm moves up and the rib cage moves down, increasing the pressure inside the lungs and forcing the air out. Recall that the lungs contain elastic tissue, which helps them return to their uninflated state on exhalation. With each breath, about 10% of the total lung capacity flows into and out of the lungs. Most people breathe between 10 and 20 times each minute, and the total volume of air ventilated per minute is about 8 to 10 liters. In strenuous exercise, the breathing rate may rise to 50 breaths per minute, and the ventilation rate doubles to over 20 liters per minute. You might think you'd be able to hold your breath until you turn blue, but after a short time, your body's automatic breathing control system takes over and forces you to breathe. The body's breathing control centers are located in 2 regions of the brain, the medulla oblongata and the pons. Together, these regions make up the brainstem, which controls basic body functions like breathing, swallowing, heart rate, and blood pressure. Nerves going from the control center in the medulla to the diaphragm and rib muscles send these muscles the signal to inhale. Stretch sensors in the muscles send signals back to the brain, preventing overexpansion of the lungs through negative feedback. The pons isn't directly connected by nerves to the lungs. It works with the medulla and modifies its output. The control center also helps regulate the level of carbon dioxide in the blood. Chemoreceptors in the medulla monitor the pH of the blood. If the pH level is low, it means more carbon dioxide is present. The depth and rate of breathing are both increased to raise the pH level again. Chemoreceptors in the heart monitor oxygen levels and transmit signals to the medulla to increase the breathing rate when these levels become too low. So far, we've looked at mechanisms for obtaining oxygen for cellular respiration from the air around us and for removing the carbon dioxide we produce. Next, we'll see how this exchange of gases takes place between the lungs and the blood.